Can I help one thing tonight? God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Simon J. Spirit. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. The Tower of Babel reaches for the heavens. They want to be a tower to reach heaven. This story going to come from Genesis chapter 11, 1 through 9. Now, this story come after the flood. When God said to Noah and his family, go and multiply throughout the earth. Now, this was after the flood. Now, God had just destroyed a city, the earth. He had just destroyed the earth. And he told them to go multiply. Now, they was on that ark, that big old boat with their dad, and they know what they had went through, but then they're going to go and do the same thing, you know, that God had just destroyed. So the builder of the Tower of Babel, share a key of a vision, of the tall building, pride. And they had one purpose: to build a name for themselves. That they wanted to claim glory that rightfully belongs to God. God is the only one get glory. Now they want to make a name for themselves. Make a name for themselves. And build a tower touching heaven. Or trying to reach it to heaven. So now the whole world had one language in a common speech. So God confused human language and scattered mankind around the world. So now all over the world, everyone speaking one language. So the deceiving of Noah, three sons, this all started with Noah, three sons. Now God told them to go multiply, go all over the earth. And I need y'all to multiply. But they refused to multiply. Those three gonna stay right there and settle and come up with the idea of building a tower trying to touch the sky. The deceiving of Noah with three sons, they remained together for a while and they went away from the region where they are settling. So they settled right there. It wasn't too far off the boat when they had got off the boat. So as the people had moved eastward, they had found a plan of Sinai and settled there. So they had settled there when God didn't tell them to settle. He told them to go multiply all across the nation. So now God had told Noah and his family to multiply all over the world, but they settled in Shinar. So they had said to each other, come and let's make bricks. They baked them thoroughly, and they used bricks instead of stone for their mortar. So the bricks they used to build this tower was a man-made and not as hard as stone. So they're going to build this tower. They're going to build this tower with the bricks used to build the tower, and not as hard as stones. So then they had said, come, let us build a tower for ourselves. Let's build a city. So they're going to build a city, so with a tower that reaches to heaven. So that we may, make a name for ourselves. So they want to make a name for themselves. Make a name for themselves and build a tower that tall trying to touch heaven. So otherwise we will scatter over the face of the whole earth. And they wanted to build a tower and make a name for themselves because they didn't want to scatter all over the earth. Now, they wanted to settle, to make a name for themselves, so they won't have to go all over the earth like God had told them to. God trying to fill the earth back up. Cause remember, He destroyed the earth. So He needs them to go all over the earth, to try to multiply, make the earth full again. So they want to take it on themselves. They been evil when they was on that boat with their father, knowing what God did to the earth. So they had wanted to climb higher. They wanted to climb higher, and God didn't begin it, baby. They gave themselves identity and self-worth, and they took God's place in their lives. They didn't even want to worship God. They wanted to be God. They wanted to be equal to God. But the law had came down, so God came down to see this time. They building so tall that they could go. So God said, I'm going to come down and see this time. I'm coming down to see what they're doing down here. So God had chosen to come down even to see their tower, but now they all is talking in one language. So we don't know how they got it done because they all talking in one language. And so the Lord has said, if as one people speaking the same language, they had begun to do this, but then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. They all talking one language, and trying to still build a tower at the same time. So God does not dismiss, their effort as weak and futile, but instead he acknowledged that by working together, humanity can accomplish whatever they had set out to do. And see, God had everyone talking in one language, but they want to accomplish this time, so when they all came together, they in humanity, they was finished this time. That meant they was going to accomplish this time. If they had to all be together, at one time and find out what they're talking about, because a lot of them couldn't understand what they were saying, but they made the effort, to try to complete this tower. So come let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. Because see, they started gathering up together and they was understanding each other and still were trying to finish that tower. So now I call God, say, let me go down there and go down there and confuse their language. So they won't be able to understand each other to finish this tower. So this point in history, so people of the earth have remained, undivided, with one language and culture. Now, they had also decided to remain unfounded, and become great and powerful by their own strength. So they weren't going by God's strength; they were going by their own strength. They ain't serving worship God; they want people to worship them. So they become great and powerful by their own strength and ability, and they did not worship God or call on Him at all. They wanted to be God. They want to be equal to God. So they work and did everything on their own strength. And they made sure they ain't called God at all, because these is no boys. Remember the three boys started building this city. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. Because see, God told them to stop, they ain't want to stop. They still they were talking in one language, but some kind of way they gathered together and still was accomplished to finish this tower. So the Lord scattered them from there over the whole earth, and they stopped building the tower. Because that's what God told them at the beginning. I need y'all to scatter all over the earth. To keep immunity from being powerful. Now they wanted to be powerful, didn't God? God confused him into language and scattered mankind around the world. And that's what he wanted them to go all over the world, and scatter yourself. So the city of Babylon, similar to the Hebrew word for confused, what later became known as Babylon. So that's why it was called Babel, become the Lord confused the language, of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them all over the face of the whole earth. So Babel had become known as Babylon. It's a great and ancient city that became a seat of power in the world. Now that made history. Now that's what they're saying. It made history. you know, at all. So it don't state why, God got upset. But it was who you'll blame? Who will blame him? You people not heaven, you seeing something building way up there trying to reach to heaven, anybody be disturbed. So this made history. This instant city that had become the seat of power in the world. So remember, God had told them to scatter all over the world. But they chose not to. They wanted to settle in Shema. They wanted to settle right there. And they want to make a name for themselves. So they won't have to move and scatter nowhere. So Babylon with one language became confused and people were scattered abroad over all the faces of the earth. So they wanted to remain together as one people. Remember, it's the three brothers. That was the three brothers who started all this. But the Lord not only allowed this division, but He caused it to happen. They were trying to be equal, with God and seeking to be free from scattering all over the earth, but instead they wanted to reach heaven on their terms. So they really was trying to be equal to God. They wanted to be God. They wanted the people to bow down to them. So God disrupt the language of the workers that they could not longer understand one another. And see, that's how God do. God can confuse, the enemy. God will have them fighting among their own self, and they don't realize why they going against each other. God confused them like that. Because God confused them. They couldn't even finish the tower. So we can't, you know, we can't build a tower, to reach heaven. We cannot be equal to God. And three, they wanted the people to bow down to them. So four, they wanted to make a name for themselves. And just after the flood, God told them to multiply and scatter, across the earth, but they chose, to settle right ain't too far from the boat that they got on, and they didn't want to serve God, but they wanted the people to serve them. Building a tall tower that reaches to heaven, but God tore it down. God struck it. And it tore all the way down. Because what they was using to build it was thick and heavy. But He struck it. He struck the tower. And see, we cannot do anything on our strength. We tried to. We tried to. We have to do everything on God's strength. We cannot be equal to God. We can't feel like we God. They wanted to make a name for themselves. They wanted the people to bow down to them and not God. And they was doing everything on their strength. They try to act like God didn't exist and doing things on their own by building the tower, and serving false God. So that's all the words that I have for you tonight. You know, y'all have a blessed night, and I see y'all in the next video.